Chapter 10. The next morning, Mike cooked the bacon and eggs that he brought from his place. They sat together and ate breakfast before getting ready to start their day. The EPA people would be there by 9, so they had no time to fool around. When they were ready, Mike drove to the visitor center, where everyone planned on meeting. Beth's phone rang while they were on the way to the meeting. It was a number with no name. Beth answered and hit the speaker button. "Agent Hartley," she said. "Agent Hartley, this is Scott, the guy you helped last night. I don't think I thanked you and the ranger properly last night. I really appreciate what you two did for us." "It was our pleasure to help," Beth said. "I wanted to let you know that Mark is going to be okay. We won't finish the trail this year, of course, but he wants to come back next year and finish the trail from where we left off. Walking the trail in 2 seasons is still a great accomplishment," Mike said. "That's what Mark said. I'm just happy he wants to continue." "How is your ear?" Beth asked. "It will never look normal again, but that's okay. At least I will have a story to tell." "Well, we wish both of you the best," Beth said. They said their goodbyes, and Beth hung up the call just before they arrived at the meeting place. They were 10 minutes early, but the EPA people were already there. This time, besides the 2 vans, they also had a mobile laboratory that looked like a small motorhome from the outside. Next to that was an ambulance standing by. There were more people, too. 11 people stood in the parking lot while the superintendent went over everything that had happened to date. When Mike and Beth approached, he said, "In case you haven't already met, this is Ranger Mike Bauer and FBI agent Beth Hartley. They have been investigating the strange happenings around here and know even more than I do about them. If you have any questions, they will be glad to answer them for you. Ranger Mike will be escorting most of you to the crash site, so he will need some protective gear." He looked at Beth and asked, "Will you be going along too, Agent Hartley?" "I wouldn't miss it, sir," Beth said. "Very well. Agent Hartley will also need protective gear." Dr. Catherine Blake, the team leader, approached Beth and Mike. She shook their hands and said, "It's a pleasure to see you two again. How is Ranger David doing today?" "I don't know about today, but he was doing quite well last night," Mike said. "That's good to hear. Follow me, and I will get you two set up." She led them to one of the vans, where several members of her team were standing outside putting on their protective gear. She pulled out a couple of coveralls, gloves, and breathing devices. Mike held up the coveralls and asked, "Is all this really necessary? I mean, wouldn't the oxygen masks be enough?" "We don't know what we are dealing with yet," she said. "The indications are that whatever it is out there is airborne, but it is also possible that it could be absorbed through the skin. We just don't know yet. Do you want to take that chance?" "No, I guess not," Mike said. "I understand that all this stuff is uncomfortable," said Dr. Blake, "but you will get used to it." After everyone finished getting dressed, Mike went to his vehicle and removed his tranquilizer pistol from the back. The coveralls had 2 pockets, so he put the tranquilizer gun in one pocket and his radio and cell phone in the other. He also wanted to bring a small box of extra darts, but had nowhere to put it, so he asked Beth to carry it for him. He thought about bringing the rifle, but decided he didn't want to carry it. He knew Beth was armed, so he figured he wouldn't need it. Mike, Beth, Dr. Blake, and 7 members of her team got in the 2 vans and drove as close as they could to the part of the trail they needed to go to. The ambulance followed and parked behind them. They carried their face masks with them until they reached the place where they had to leave the trail and walk into the woods. Unlike the day before, the weather was beautiful. The sun was shining, and the temperature was low enough to make the extra clothing almost bearable. Having been through this part of the woods twice before, Dr. Blake and her team were more familiar with where they were going than Mike. Mike knew he was more of a protector than a guide, so he was content to let Dr. Blake take the lead. As they walked, Mike kept his hand on his tranquilizer gun while he scanned the area for potential threats. He even occasionally stopped to look behind them to make sure they weren't being stalked, even though he knew animals pumped up with adrenaline would not be interested in quietly stalking their prey. "Dr. Blake, what will happen after you find the cause of all these problems?" Beth asked. "I mean, how long will it take to get this place back to normal? That's a tough question to answer without knowing what the problem is. It could be anywhere from a couple of days to several years. Some contaminated sites just can't be safely cleaned up. We end up closing them off indefinitely. Beth shook her head and said, I sure hope that doesn't happen here. I agree, said Dr. Blake. It is a beautiful area. I would hate to lose it. When they got close, Dr. Blake pointed at the broken treetops and said, We're getting close. That's where the meteorite came down. They picked up their pace a little, but slogging through the woods without a clear trail was still slow going. When they reached the clearing where the meteorite had hit, the size of the crater left behind by the meteorite surprised Beth and Mike. Wow, no wonder people thought we had an earthquake, Mike said. So, if the meteorite wasn't toxic, do you think it disturbed something under the ground here? Beth asked. Maybe there is some kind of gas pocket under there. It's possible, said Dr. Blake. That's what we're here to find out. She turned to the rest of her crew and said, Okay, you all know what to do. I need air and soil samples from the crater and all around this area. Make sure you mark every spot where you take the sample. The people got to work taking air samples, digging up dirt, and placing it in glass containers. They then placed markers in the spots where the dirt came from and wrote the marker numbers on the labels. Once all the samples were collected and packed away, someone photographed the entire area. When they finished, they headed back. Mike led the way, this time with Beth right behind him. When they returned, Dr. Blake's team brought the samples directly to their mobile lab and began analyzing them immediately. Beth and Mike waited outside for a few minutes until Dr. Blake came out and said, We probably won't know anything for at least 2 hours. It's almost noon. Why don't you two go have lunch? Come back around 2. We should know something by then. Beth and Mike looked at each other, and Beth said, Well, I am getting hungry. Me too, Mike said. Let's go back to my place. There might be food there if Dave hasn't eaten it all. They headed back to Mike's cabin. When they arrived, they found Dave sitting on the sofa watching television. He still had a bandage on his face, but he looked well otherwise. He turned the television off and said, Hey, you two, how was your foray into the woods this morning? Unlike yours, it was uneventful, Mike said. The science geeks got their samples, and we are just waiting for the results. Where's Patty? I thought she came to be with you. She had to work this morning. She'll be back later. We just came for lunch. Did you eat yet? Not yet, buddy. Are you making lunch? I guess I am, Mike said, if there is anything left to make. Don't worry about that. Patty brought us some groceries. She brought bread and some lunch meat if you feel like a sandwich. Mike saw a bag of small hoagie rolls on the counter, along with a head of lettuce and a couple of tomatoes. He opened the refrigerator and found a package of roast beef. He looked at Beth and asked, Are you up for a roast beef sandwich? Of course, Beth said. That sounds good. While Mike prepared the sandwiches, Beth sat on a chair beside the sofa and said, So, how are you feeling today, Dave? I feel fine. I'm ready to go back to work. This forced time off is boring. I can imagine. Do you know when you will be able to return to work? I have an appointment to see the doctor the day after tomorrow. Hopefully, I'll get the green light then. I'm sure you can handle 2 more days of relaxing. Mike finished the sandwiches and put them on the table. Lunch is served, he said. You mean you're not going to bring them to us? Dave asked. Keep dreaming, buddy. Dave looked at Beth and said, I always thought injured people got pampered. If I had known, I would have avoided that crazed animal. Well, now you know for next time, Beth said. They got up and joined Mike at the table. Beth took a bite of her sandwich and said, This is good. Thanks, Mike. We should be thanking Dave's girlfriend. Without her, we'd be eating canned soup and potato chips. I'd be happy with that too, Beth said. Really? Mike asked. Don't be so surprised. You should know I'm not a prima donna by now. No, you certainly are not that. I bet you could survive alone on a deserted island. It's a bit of a turn-on. Okay, you two, get a room, Dave said. I'd like to, but we're on the clock, Mike said. Speaking of that, when will they know something? Dave asked. Mike looked at his watch and said, We should know something in about an hour. They brought a mobile lab with them this time. What are you going to do if they don't find anything? What are you talking about? They took samples from the entire area. They have to find something. Beth shook her head and said, I hope they figure this out, but I'm not going to hold my breath on this one this time. Mike looked at her, surprised at her pessimism. Really? Do you think something else is going on around here? Do you still think it is some terrorist testing ground? I don't know what to think. I know we were disappointed before, so I'm hoping for the best, but planning for the worst. So, what if the worst happens? What if they find nothing? Then we just keep plugging along. We have protective gear now. If we have to, we will just get back out there until we find the culprit. Now, I'm eager to put this to rest. Let's go back and see if they learned anything yet. But I'm not done with my sandwich yet. Bring it with you, Mike said as he headed toward the door. Beth took another bite and put the rest of the sandwich on her plate. She put her hand on Dave's shoulder. Sorry, she said as she raced to catch up to Mike. They both got into Mike's vehicle, and Beth said, What's the hurry? I'm sorry, Beth. I just need to know, if we have to go out searching again, I want to do it while we still have plenty of daylight. When they returned to the visitor center, they saw several people hanging out near the mobile lab. They had split into small groups and were talking among themselves. Some had drinks in their hands. They didn't see Dr. Blake, so Mike knocked on the door. Dr. Blake opened it and peered outside. Oh, Agent Hartley, Ranger Mike, you're back early. Have you learned anything yet? Mike asked. I'm afraid not, she said. We haven't tested all the samples yet, but everything we have tested so far came up negative for harmful chemicals. I don't hold out much hope that the remaining samples will be any different, but you never know. Okay, thank you, Doctor. We'll check back in a little bit. Mike held out his hand and said, Come on. Beth took his hand and he led her toward the building. Where are we going? Just inside. I'll show you. Inside, there was an information desk as well as several shelves with merchandise on them. Mike found a map of the park and picked it up. He spread the map out on the counter and said, I need a pen. Beth looked around and found a basket full of pens. She handed one to Mike. He studied the map carefully and said, Okay, here is where the meteorite hit. He drew a small circle and filled it in. He drew 2 more small circles and said, This is where the bear attacked that man, and this is where Dave was attacked. He thought a little more and drew another circle. I think this is where the 2 men we found were injured, but I didn't think to get a GPS reading. Beth looked at the map and asked, Where was Emma Drake's campsite? Mike thought for a moment and circled it with his pen. They camped right here. So, draw a line from the campsite to the meteorite. Whatever is out there should fall along that line. Good idea, Mike said, and drew a line. That's still a fairly big area. Whatever we are looking for is not going to stand out like a neon sign. The ducks, Mike said, and got out his phone. He found the GPS coordinates from the screenshot he had saved and entered them into his map software. He looked at the display and compared it to his paper map. We found the ducks here, he said, and drew a circle. He then drew a line heading south-southeast until it crossed the first line he drew. Beth looked at the intersection and picked up the pen. She drew a circle around all the incident points. The intersection fell almost in the middle of the circle. It looks like we found a new place to search. Mike folded the map and said, Come on, we need to take advantage of the daylight we have left. They went back to the mobile lab and knocked on the door. Dr. Blake answered again and said, I'm afraid that entire area is free of contaminants. We found nothing more than trace amounts of a few different chemicals, but nothing even close to a toxic level. That's because we were looking in the wrong area, Beth said. She looked at Mike, who nodded and unfolded his map. He pointed his finger at a spot on the map and said, This is where the meteorite was. He moved his finger slightly up and to the left. This is where we need to search. It's a little more than a quarter-mile northwest of the original location. She looked at Mike and then at Beth and asked, Are you sure about this? Beth shrugged, and Mike said, We can't be sure about anything, but we considered where all the incidents took place, and this makes the most sense. Dr. Blake thought for a moment and finally said, Okay, I'll get my team. No, Mike said. Just you. We may not find anything, and I don't want to be responsible for the safety of so many people if it is not necessary. Very well, Dr. Blake said before calling her team together. She told them she would be going without them to check something out, and they should wait for further instructions. Falling Star continues on the next video. For more information on this book and others by this author, please visit charleshuss.com.